It is anything. It is everything. It is the Buck Gritano Podcast. Ancient alien theory. Ancient civilization. Spirituality. Mythology. Reality TV star. Current events. Not so current events. Comedy. Religion. Music. Authors. Sports. We cover it all. We talk about it all. Right here. Right now on the Buck Gritano Podcast. And now, here's the man who makes Stream of Mind a streaming sensation, Buck Gritano.
And I switched over. I did a little audio entry there, man. Like to welcome everybody. What the Buck? This new podcast I started up. People know me out there, Buck Gritano, from my horse racing, past the buck. I spoke about horse racing, covered it for 7 years almost, man. So wanted to take a little journey into my life, the things I like. You know, interviewing all owners, jockeys, trainers. I love them people, and I never forget them. I come back tomorrow to talk horse racing, but time for Buck to talk about stuff he wants. It's What the Buck, because it's what I want, Buck Gritano. So joining me tonight, and I'd like to introduce him real quick because we were talking for like 15 minutes, and he's like, we got to talk now. Go live, because we're having a good conversation. This is Off the Beaten Path. I like ancient alien theories. I like ancient civilizations. Looked up Zachariah Sitchin stuff, Graham Hancock stuff, ancient civilization. So pretty much for me, it starts at the Great Flood, the Noah story, how it all began, how creation began, where I came from. I know that I'm like a little Italian in me. I got a little Irish. I live in Queens. I know that stuff, but I don't think we've been told the truth about a lot of things. And we go to school and we learn books and we got to pass the class and get the A because they taught us something. They wrote down. This guy I'm bringing on, I feel like a truth seeker. I don't know if that's how you feel. I know you did a lot of work in spiritual coaching and lecturing and other stuff like that. But your books that you came out with, Atlantis. Now, I was researching Atlantis, and I like audiobooks, so I click in Atlantis, and I come up with Atlantis and the Garden of Eden. And I'm like, wow. I was like, this looks interesting. I did all the ancient alien ones. I did Nick Redfern's books, a bunch of them. I did tons of books, but I landed on yours. About 8 hours long, so I always check that out. How many checks? And I was like, let me check this thing out, man. So Frederick Dodson is the author. It's Atlantis and the Garden of Eden. Then you followed it up, and I didn't even know you came out with another one, so I bought it real quick. It was 5.5 hours, the second one. Ancient Aliens of Atlantis, I believe. That's the second. I put up the links and stuff like that on the page. Frederick, thank you so much for stopping by, talking to me, on this Thursday night, man.
This is Fred Dodson at What the Buck, and I think What the Buck is going to be real well known one day, and that's why I'm on the show.
Yeah, I wish.
He started recently, and I want to be one of the first because What the Buck is going to be a name. So yeah, I wrote Atlantis and the Garden of Eden, and I wrote Ancient Aliens of Atlantis. And just recently I brought out another book called The Pleiades and Our Secret Destiny. Those are the 3 books I've written on extraterrestrials, ancient aliens, where I try to bring together supernatural and extraterrestrial and science and religion instead of compartmentalizing the 4 areas, which a lot of researchers out there do. They're like, okay, I only believe in extraterrestrials. There's no such thing as spiritual. And then others say, oh, I only believe in God and spirituality, no such thing as extraterrestrials. And we know how society likes to, or they, whoever they are, they like to compartmentalize and limit our focus. And what I try to do with my books is not be so narrow-minded and just expand my focus to include all those areas and pull evidence from all those areas. Because, I was just fed up with what I was taught, which is so obviously not true. What we learn in school, it's a scam to me, and that's where I stand.
And it's the whole process of trying to figure out. And I hope everybody can hear me because I don't see my mic coming up. I hope everybody can hear me. I got into your book, the first thing that opened up, and it's like anybody, the Great Flood, Noah. The story of Noah. I mean, Great Flood, God got mad at us and wanted to wipe out all the bad. And I'm not talking to it as a Bible So I'm not a Bible. I'm not going to read off Genesis and the Greek. I'm not going to get into that. I was brought up that way in Catholic school, which is great. And I love that stuff. But I like you said, we're being lied to, and I got introduced that through Ancient Aliens, which it's a good show, and some of their shows and episodes are pretty good. But when you get into the 13th, 14th season, you see it starts getting watered out. They're starting to repeat the same things. I know that something happened. There was a great flood. Musicians of the Gods, I read Graham Hancock's stuff, followed him, listened to all his lectures and stuff like that. I kind of agree that there was a catastrophe that happened. How it happened, is a comet impact? I don't know. Could possibly be. But something happened. Spiritual something happened where all these civilizations just started writing this stuff down. Great flood, this. And it always seemed to be one person, to me, in my opinion, Buck from Queens, that the survivors of Atlantis, and I was in search of Atlantis. I really wanted to figure out what Atlantis was about. And I looked it up on YouTube, and it seemed to me that some people had Atlantis as being some great spiritual, everything started like on Earth in Atlantis and these circles, and I was really confused with that stuff, you know. But then breaking it down to the point where 1 or 2, 3% of Atlantis survived and brought their knowledge to other civilizations. And I love how you broke, and you listen to his book or read his books. It's excellent how he puts it down. Simple, short. He'll let you know the story of what happened in that civilization. They all had great flood stories, and we all know that. From all around the world. It's crazy. It's amazing. And this is plain evidence that you wrote about, and nothing is being done by it, man. It absolutely amazes me, man. So start off with the flood. You look into the flood story. I know that it's in a big part of your book.
Well, here's the thing. The flood accounts are global. I used to think the flood story is from the Bible, and that's it. But if you look more closely, you see the same flood story in Buddhism, in Hinduism, in Islam, in the Native Americans. So the Native Americans have a flood story about a sunken land in the east. And the Europeans have a sunken land story about sunken land in the west. Okay, because these things apparently happen in the Atlantic Ocean. So you have global accounts of floods. You have a global network of pyramids, of pre-flood pyramids, and it can be proven that they're pre-flood by the water levels. You have mythology, so-called mythology, that's the thing. Worldwide, and that's the main thing of my book.
Yes.
It just matches. The stories match. So after a while I realized, wait a minute, all of these stories are actually the same story, one story told from many different viewpoints, many different cultures, but they're essentially all saying the same thing. So what I did was I studied the flood stories of the Mayans, of the Egyptians, of the Tamil in India, of the Japanese, of the Chinese. I studied their flood stories, and from that I assembled a clear, what's to me a clear picture of what actually happened. And you know, then once I discovered that, the next question was, well, why do academics say the Great Flood never happened? You know, everybody else says it, all the ancients say it. And then I realized that academia played a few tricks on us. So they labeled history, what used to be history, this used to be called history, they just labeled it mythology. Okay? So up until about 6,000 years ago, that's called history. And all the accounts and records of before 6,000 years ago, they just call it mythology, because for them it's too hard to believe. Or anything 10,000 years ago, pre-flood, to be more precise, because after the flood, which was about 10, 12,000 years ago, everything was devastated, and humanity only picked up again around 6,000 years ago, and that's where history begins, according to academia. So they just label the whole thing mythology and say, that's not true, that's fiction, even though, there's non-fiction. It can be proven that some of the mythology is non-fiction, as if the ancients mixed fiction and non-fiction, which humans don't really do. Either something is fiction or non-fiction. What else they did is they took the word dragons, a word such as dragon, and they labeled it dinosaur. And they changed the story, in my opinion. And another thing they did is they took the word giants and they labeled it Denisovans or something like that. Something idiotic sounding.
That's
just
amazing.
To distort the fact that all of these tales and all of these historical accounts actually happened. So then the next question is, why do they do that? I have no idea, Buck.
I'm not. It all starts off and it's something crazy happened before the flood, man. No matter which way you look at it, something really bad was going on before that flood. I mean, they wanted to hide it so bad. I'm even at the point where I think there was many startups, many civilizations that really, really stride, and we're not the first one, man. And I don't, that's what the Atlantis, that's one where it just started up again and forgot. Like your Graham Hancock says, the amnesia, we had amnesia. We did. Now, in the book, you never really talk about a common impact. You give shout outs to Graham Hancock, Robert Schoch, you gave a couple of shout outs to in both books, I believe. So you definitely reached out to people who are struggling in this industry to try to get the truth out there with the erosion and the Sphinx. And people don't, they didn't hear about that stuff. 92, 94, when Mr. Robert Schoch stepped out, he was called crazy. Now there's like a cult following behind him. Thousands, hundreds of people, let's say thousands yet, pay to see him, do a lecture or hear him talk. And it's like, you're never going to win the battle. And I don't think in our time we're going to see any kind of truth come out of anything. I mean, everything's a conspiracy now in the world, but I think it makes it crazier so we don't understand the truth, the real truth of where we came from. And the Great Flood leads to other stories, and I have to bring them up. Gilgamesh, right? You spoke about Gilgamesh, and I like the way you talk about myths, mythology, ancient mythology, but looking at it as being history books, describing stuff in their way of knowledge, of knowing, I guess, to describe what happened. They didn't have these MacBooks. I guess not this civilization. Maybe the Atlanteans had MacBooks. I don't know. Maybe the Atlanteans did. But anyway, let's get to a real story, a real question. Atlantis was that much ahead in time than you think us right now? They were able to fly. They had flying stuff. Because I hear in the book you mentioned about how it's not really hard to picture people flying. You know what I mean? Because we've seen it. People fly. But for people to fly then and it happened again, catch up. I know you know what I mean. But I hope people that are listening now understand what I'm trying to say. Atlantis was that far ahead, do you think?
Well, this whole idea of a slow evolution from cavemen, from apes and then cavemen up to how we are today is garbage in my view. Civilization, in my view, went up and down in waves, up and down, decline, rise. So I believe we've had many technologically advanced civilizations. In fact, I mean, to be honest with you, Buck, I think the universe is teeming with intelligent life, and we're one of the few that are ignorant. And all kinds of games are being played out there, and the Earth is in quarantine, in a kind of fog, kind of ignorance. So the Atlanteans, in my view, were pretty far up there technologically, not necessarily spiritually, but technologically, and they declined. they declined.
Now, why would you say not as spiritually? I always think and heard, when I hear stuff about Atlantis that they were more spiritual, more higher. I don't know. There's different words for it. More higher level, or there's the levels. Like the Hindus went the levels of. You could help me out because you wrote all those stuff.
Levels of consciousness.
Yes. The consciousness, I should say. And that's your main study, right? You're being.
Well, yeah. They were, but that's a really long story, actually. Let's just say for now that they declined, okay, in my view. And what it says in the ancient writings is that before the flood came, they were in a horrible state. They would have gone extinct anyway. They would have blown each other off the planet, okay? Within 100 years, they would have gone extinct anyway. And to end their suffering, the whole place was wiped out for a restart. So this may sound strange, but it actually goes back to you've talked about reptilians, right?
I've heard of, I listened to, what's called X stuff on it. Lars Kassin, I think his name was, had an audio book, Alien World Order.
So there's this war, okay? There's this war between the serpent race, which is featured in all the old writings, and other extraterrestrials. And that's what's actually going on, and the Earth is just a little sideshow of that. So there's a whole.
So they're pretty much watching us, so they're just analyzing, watching us, and not interact as much as possible. Stay back because we're not probably even anywhere near their intelligence or whatever spiritual. I don't know if they are spiritual, but is it the technology thing that keeps them away? You think, or what keeps them away? They're not saying we're here. Come on. I mean, what's the big? I don't get that.
It's non-intervention. When you grow plants in your garden, you let them grow. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you. Totally. I see what you're saying. Yeah, hey, let them grow. Grow into what? What are we supposed to grow into? That would help them.
Until we're mature enough, until we're finished with training school and mature enough to join the cosmic family.
Okay, so it is deeper than that, than the aliens.
It's actually deeper.
I see.
Just that I didn't write about that in the book.
Oh, that's cool. So I get a little bit of first info on the information before it hits the audio books, and you have Tom do some more audio narrating. Excellent guy, man. Sounded great. I'll tell you. Only thing he messed up, he said, what did he say? And this is a book. I can't never make fun of anybody. He's great. I can't pronounce it now. Göbekli Tepe or something like that.
Yeah.
Göbekli Tepe. I can't. I'm terrible, man.
That's why I didn't do the audio book.
That's awesome, man. I can go on at this. So you think that force up there that watches us were watching the Atlanteans too, and they were the reason for the gods that we saw, or people, the lower G gods that impacted our history over the years then, right?
Well, yeah, I think there's a creator god, but these are not the creator gods. They're just extraterrestrials that are mistaken for gods. There's a source, which is a really high level of consciousness, and this galaxy, this game here, is taking place at a lower level of consciousness, and Earth is a kind of a outpost in the galaxy. And there's this conflict going on between the serpents and others, probably extraterrestrials from the Pleiades, as I write in my latest book. And it's got something to do with that. So you read in the ancient myths, you read of the wars of the gods, okay? And it's always some dragon ship blowing up some fire ship. And you read that. You read that in all the religions, and that's what went on. And
It's true. Nah, you look at the fire that represents I guess the engines or the smoke coming off the ships. I mean, I try to listen to the Hindu text and stuff like that. I'm not gonna say the word, the Mahabharata, whatever how you pronounce it. It's 45 hours long, and it's kind of it was a slow story, and I couldn't really catch the characters because I'm not too deep on their religion, so it was hard for me to listen to. You know what I mean? But even them with the what was it? The planets that the cities that flew and the spaceships they saw, you know, so they were somebody was interacting, you know what I mean? But it's kind of weird for me. I was hearing you say about, you know, reptilians and stuff like that. I didn't get that from the books. The two books that I read, the first listened to, I did not get.
They're in the book, but very subtle. They're not called reptilians. They're called the serpent.
The serpent. Okay, I got you. Yeah, it's true. It's true. The snake in the garden, the same. I know a lot of people looked at them as being more of a gods than the real one. You know, giving us the knowledge to farm and do everything, live as a civilization. You just don't pop up out of nowhere and build these things these people build. Even to the point where they say that we've kind of decreased in our building skills, and that's why a lot of these cities were probably abandoned because they couldn't take care of them at a time. They didn't know what to do and abandoned them. The Mayans, some of their cities, or Incas, or whatever. So hearing all that stuff, it makes me like saying, "What the hell is going on? What happened? What happened from the beginning?" I want to know what happened from the beginning. Like, for me, it's like an ancient civilization, they were advanced, and something bad happened. A little percentage of them survived. So what's going on upstairs, I can't even get to your level yet until I figure out what's going on in the in-between, because that up there, they don't really scare me up there. If they're watching, they're more advanced, they probably can help some people, or I don't know what it is. Maybe they stopped some nuclear startups. They're the ones we're seeing in the skies. I don't know, but there's something out there that gave us advancement and stuff, and they're hiding stuff, and a lot of this, the moon, when the moon struck, you know, it rings. You had the story about the Chinese. They saw the surface of the moon. They described it. We can't, like you said, you can't describe the moon when you're on the Earth in the daytime because it looks like you can't describe it. They described it in their mythology, but that's fake. But they described it, right? The Sumerians had the planets, and we see them. They're there. It's the sun, and the planets are around it with 12 planets. Is Zechariah Sitchin the real deal? I think he's a little full of it, full of shit a little bit, because he's selling these books and stuff, making it a little bit more. I don't trust the whole story, but I do. They think he was very smart to keep it where it was believable, I guess. Nerebu, whatever it was, Nibro, Nerebu, whatever, the 12th planet, will just swing by and hit us. No, that's good stuff, but you give me the straight up, I don't want to know the bullshit, I like the story of Gilgamesh. Question is, Gilgamesh is supposedly the first poem, they call it, I guess a poem, first story, right, for the intelligent people, the first story, but is Gilgamesh Nimrod? Now, I'm somebody that doesn't really know either or, but I see Nimrod, who built the Tower of Babel. God told him, then he changed the voices. They couldn't speak together. God shut that down, many languages, whatever. They the same person, you think? Or could they be both, giants? They're supposed to be the Nephilim, the giants, the fallen ones, whatever you want to call them. Give me a little, no, maybe?
So that's your first question, is Gilgamesh Nimrod? And my first answer to your first question is, I don't know.
No clue. That's a good one. I thought it was going to be a good one, man. Okay, that was my first one. It was okay. Could it be? It could be, but right?
It's a good question.
It's a research one. It's definitely a research one. Out of all the different, different chapters in the book, which one of them really stood out to you as being, I got to get this information out more than any? Like, I know there's one chapter, one that really meant a lot in either book. I mean,
Well, Buck, I wrote the book about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you which chapter is my favorite.
Oh, I'm 10 years late, man. That's terrible. You're listening to What the Buck with Fred Dodson. You can check out his stuff. I want to post everything out here, so I'll make sure in the comments and stuff I'll post out who you're listening to. But this stuff I like. I know a lot of people like this aliens and ancient alien theories and what is it? David Icke's information is pretty interesting with the reptilians, and he comes out with great stuff. I think people are just afraid to admit this stuff. Like, let's not talk about that because they're going to think we're crazy. But I'm 10 years late on the book, but you can still get it. I mean, you can still buy it, right? You can still... Maybe?
It's still wonderful. So I'm seeing the chapters right here.
Okay.
I'd say the chapter on giants and dwarves is interesting. Subterranean dwarves and the giants that really existed. The giants... that were mentioned in a lot of newspaper clippings in the 19th century. So there's thousands and thousands of newspaper articles from the 19th century, New York Times, all the big newspapers about, the finding of giants and the digging up of giants. And then after World War II, it all mysteriously disappears and was never heard of again. And people who are old enough to remember, people who are 100 years old, they remember them. And you ask yourself, where did all those stories about digging up giants go? That is so weird. That's one of the weirdest parts of the book, where I ask, what is this? A total information blackout on the topic of giants. And anybody who cares to look into the archives of the different newspapers is going to find the same thing. There's this...
Hold on, I'm trying to... What I could do now, I could post up stuff, so I'm going to post it up, and people could see it on Facebook. The Giants, and you're totally 100% right, because they really fascinated me the most, getting involved in this, I don't know what you call it, I just like this research into this, and it started with the Giants. And I looked up. I have a friend, Jim Vera. He did his thing on History Channel with the Lost Giants, where him and his brother went on looking for giants, because the newspaper clippings with the Smithsonian is that what really got him triggered, and seeing all the structures and stuff like that. Really. So Jim Vieira, and there was another one too, Fitzsimmons or Fitzpatrick. He has a list, and you mentioned something in the book saying that. I couldn't go through that part because it was just so boring. Like, just going off newspaper clips, and this is newspaper clips. Somebody sent you a book, newspaper clips. That was great. You brought a little humor to the audio book too.
Richard Dewhurst, his book on giants is just all newspaper clippings. And after a while, it gets so tedious. It's like the same story over and over. We found a giant skeletons here, and then the next one we found it here, and we found it here, and we found it below the mounds, and we found it here. And but people got it. People really have to hold journalists accountable, and hold the Smithsonian Institute.
It's like nothing. It doesn't mean nothing. Trust me. They find the skulls, they find everything, and it doesn't mean anything to them. It's like, I heard stories that they used to push the bones of the giants off ships. I don't know how true that is, but that's a good way to get rid of a lot of them. There was the Lovelock Caves, right, with the native Indians. There's proof they were there. So they're finding double rows, the 6 fingers, and it talks about it in the Bible. We all know Goliath. I mean, he was a giant. I had another guy who told me that a lot of things that end with ites, like Canaanites, something-ites, Israelites, I guess not them because they weren't giants, but because they saw the giants that looked like grasshoppers compared to what these creatures looked like. And I don't know if it was the reptilians upstairs that said, "Oh, wipe out time. How we do it this time? We're going to flood them." And then one of them on the ship said, Fred, he goes, "You know what? That's not cool, man. We can't do that to these people. Well, the next ones will help out. We'll save them at least." It got to be a hero in every civilization, aliens or reptilians, or we have that mind to save people. At least some of us do, a small percentage. So they saved, and they got rid of them giants. But a couple of them hung around because they survived. They went up into the mountains, the high mountains, and where was all the gods? In the high mountains, right? 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 And then all of a sudden, I guess they couldn't mate anymore, so they died off, or they integrated with us today, and you can't notice. Once in a while, you see an old Andre the Giant pop up, but he has a disease that whatever disease it is that makes him grow. That's what they tell us, but it's just.
It seems like, first of all, it seems like they were the ones who built all these gigantic ancient structures because that's what the old accounts say. I mean, I do believe in extraterrestrials and all, but everybody's like, oh my God, who built these pyramids? The ancient accounts say that it was the giants that built all kinds of gigantic structures, and they ask, how could you transport a thing like that? It must have been extraterrestrials. May be true, but it could also be the giants. And it seems like they, after the flood, they were wiped out, and just a few survived. And the few that survived, you find them in ancient legends and fairy tales and stories. And now there's, as you say, there's no more left. Once in a while you get a very, very tall person, but they're almost gone, you know. And then, in addition to that, there's the dwarves. Have you heard anything of the dwarves?
Not big on. No, only thing I heard on dwarves were in China. There was I don't know. There was a race there, and they had them. They were smaller, and they were kept confined to that one area of China. I know that's the only thing I've heard of them. You know what I mean?
You hear this legend all over the world too. There's legends about it from Germany, from Morocco, from China, the little people, from Ireland.
The leprechauns,
the Americans, okay, the little people. That was another race that either died out or went subterranean.
And now I got to get into the subterranean, and this is kind of off the books, but where can we get you if you're going to reach out to get any kind of books? So it's a reality. What is it? You can help me with the. I'm unprepared here. What do I got?
Reality Creation.
RealityCreation.org.
RealityCreation.org. I used to have a website called AncientAtlantis.com, and I took it offline because it kept getting attacked. By the way.
Really?
Yeah, it kept getting attacked and hacked, and I was sick of it. I said, oh, I don't need this hassle. I'm just going to take the whole thing offline, publish the books on Amazon. They're not going to hack Amazon, you know. So
that's where I got the stuff from. I checked out your website. I didn't know it was 10 years ago, so I apologize on that. How long ago? Excuse me, but
it doesn't matter. This stuff is timeless.
Do you? But you think no, exactly. I enjoyed it. It fits now. I think you were ahead of your time. If I have you, for me personally, the last 5 years, 6 years has been a big climb in conferences and all these things in deserts and all over the place. It's grown as it's an industry. Like I see one guy and I want to believe him. He talks about a blue avian, Corey Good. I don't think he's a bad guy, but then I see him talk about stuff about comic books, and now he has a show on. I went to watch it, and I had to pay for it. So I'm saying to myself, this guy's trying to save the world, but I got to pay to watch his documentary. Okay, I understand you got to pay for some kind of course, but again, the word out there, it kind of threw me away from him a little bit, man. So you know what? It's become a business, a lot of people. And you were talking about this before it was the business. So forth. I mean, the only lectures were the Bigfoot lectures, the stuff like that. There's the book. I like the book.
It's not been much of a business for me. I have another business. So my other books sell much, much better than this. These hardly sell at all.
Ah, you gotta get more books out there, man. Books for the books. No, I enjoyed it.
My other books sell great, but these haven't quite taken off yet. But they're precious anyway.
It's great information.
They reach the right people. They reach Buck, and that's enough for me.
Nah, it was good stuff, man. Because I know a lot of people are into it, and I met last week I had an NFL player on. It's going to be Brett Miller, and we're going to interview some ex-NFL football players because I like all angles. So, and I was starting. I like Ancient Aliens. He's like, "You like Ancient Aliens? I love that show. I love it. He's like, "Yo, what happened when we were apes or whatever? Now we're men, but why are the monkeys still around? The gorillas. It was just funny how he said it to me, the way he said it. Like, if we involved in something else, how are they still around? When they be gone? It was just funny. And I'm like, yeah, I love it too, man. I love it. Do you watch Ancient Aliens? Yeah, I tape it, man. I tape it. So a lot of this stuff is good information. Don't get me wrong.
I'll tell you something. Most people are actually aware of Ancient Aliens by now. Most people on the planet, it's not something that's still considered crazy or weird.
But some of my Facebook friends now are looking at me, watching this, clicking, saying, this guy's an idiot. Why is he into this stuff? I just like it, man. I just like to know where you came from, how it started. I was born to a Christian lady, you know. I believe that Jesus, they told me that. That's what they told me to believe. I'm not saying it's wrong. I think that Jesus, and I would never say I believe in Jesus. I believe in that he was involved, much higher consciousness than we were, did stuff that was definitely looked like it was miracles and stuff like that. Because people see this stuff, it's like freak out. We freak out, man. You see a magician on the street who does a magic trick. I'm not saying, no, Jesus is not a magician, I'm saying, but they fascinate us. But we see him do the stuff. So I was taught to pretty much find a line in religion. If I wanted to speak to a priest, I would ask him, who are the Nephilim? And they wouldn't be like, I don't know, no Nephilim, no way. Like, let me talk to you about the Nephilim. So there's something out there that just doesn't fit. And that's why I got into this kind of stuff. I like it.
Yeah, the thing is that, religion and ancient aliens doesn't conflict. In fact, all of this information is from religions. It's just looking at the religious books in a slightly more modern way. That's all.
No, you did a great job. And he's talking about, like, you start off with, say, a flood, and then I'll keep on going back to the Great Flood. We all talk about the Great Flood. But so many civilizations have the same story. Then some other civilizations have the same words. Now, like, we brought that up in one of the books, and I'm like, how could they have the same meaning for the same words? But they don't live nowhere near each other. They never communicated to each other, right? Supposedly, that we know of. But obviously they were. I mean, there's a history right there alone that's telling you that...
Yeah, two sides of the ocean, okay, far apart, and they have the same vocabulary that means the same things. So that's another lie people were told, and it's an outrage. It's such a shame.
It is.
The lie was that we never had contact with, there was no transoceanic travel.
It was
Columbus was the first guy.
Yeah, and it was the Bering, whatever, it was strait where they walked, where they walked down. Yeah, they walked that down. Yeah.
Over the Bering Strait.
But then,
like saying the ancients were too stupid to ride a boat.
No, but then when you ask them, you ask the ancients the stories, right? You know what the ancients tell you? It was the gods. They came. People came. Like, they taught us this stuff. They were here, they came. Like, we were here. Like, we didn't cross nothing. We were here already. And we used to listen to their stories and go, why would we believe them people? Like, we're smarter. We make our own story. Columbus did discover America, kids. And we still get his day off. Which is, I take it, you know what I mean? As a union worker, I'll take Columbus Day, man, if they're going to give it to me. But it's just... Like
you know what? Columbus discovered the America. That statement right there shows everything that's wrong with school and academia. Because before Columbus, there was the Vikings. Okay, they made it to Canada. Before them, there was the Romans. We found Roman coins all over the Americas. Before them, it was the Phoenicians. We found Phoenician coins all over the Americas. Even without extraterrestrials, that statement, Columbus discovered America.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's bad. It's so bad.
It is.
And these bug-eyed
kids
are sitting in there nodding and, oh yeah, okay.
But if you write down you write down Joe Schmo, you get that wrong, and you fail that class. The poor kid, man.
Yeah.
Poor kid, man. Like, my kid came home telling me, Dad, do you think discovered Columbus was a hero? I was like, yeah. I don't know what to say to the kid, man. And he turns and tells me, that he sent slaves with him on his journeys. He had slaves. I'm like, Jake, I just know that my Italian buddy friends, they like the parade. You get the day off. Hail to Columbus Circle in Manhattan. That's all I know. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But if it starts there, and they can't even do that, how would they even mention something about giants or anything else in civilization? No, we didn't come from there. There was they would never. They would never. Because I think Egypt is the perfect example of how it's plainly you can see how they hide shit. You have the Egyptians don't want to change any of their stuff, any of their history, and the guy that's in charge of it would tell you, "No, we did is write over dead history, like pretty much." Like history doesn't work like that. We figure out new things years down that okay, we messed up, you know. Yeah, now they're saying there's no gravity. Oh, what is it then? It's something else. So we mess up. We're human. That's what we're supposed to teach my kid. Oh, don't worry about it, son. You're human. You're gonna make mistakes. But as a race, we don't do it. I don't know what it is. I guess, like you said, it's probably no, you didn't say this. I'm saying this. There's probably a big high people that are in control of the money situation, the banking, and we can go into the banking situations and stuff. You know, when you go for wars, you don't go to you go to the bank. They go to the bank before they go into wars. So who's controlling who? But anyway, it's crazy. It's crazy. The whole
thing though with that idea, whether it's true or not, it's really up to us.
But we're living a lie, right?
I think that's what they are waiting for. It's up to us to demand and request more truth. It's up to each individual. And because I demanded to know more, I demanded the truth. And it said, I am going to get to the bottom of this. I want to know. I know. You know, so I can't blame it on them for covering it up. It's like a game, you know, they cover it up to
I don't get it.
inspire me to look into it. So I take responsibility and I look into it. The thing is, though, that people are overloaded. They're overloaded with their jobs and their daily lives.
You're right.
They don't have the time and the attention span to really look into it, and they're trusting.
I don't have it. I don't have it on me. The phone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. No, I'm saying they don't have the phone on them and stuff. You know, like they're sitting here, people on the phone. They're looking here. We're controlled. I thought you couldn't hear me. That's why. So. Okay.
So they're naive and they're trusting, and they figure, well, if the newspaper said so, it must be true, and then they can get on with their lives. So there's no investigation of what's going on. People just want to survive. They don't want to know about all this, you know. They just want to get by and pay the rent. So once people get more, I'd say, more strong and more happy and more wealthy individually, they're going to have the time and leisure and attention span to start asking questions. And that's what happened to me. Okay, after I got all successful, I had all this time on my hands, all this money on my bank. I had time to look into it, so I could spend all day researching, and that's how it came to me, Buck.
That's amazing. Wow.
You're listening to What the Buck with Fred Dodson. This was previously recorded a couple of months ago, so for everybody out there that try to tune in and you know, give a comment and stuff like that, I appreciate it. But you were listening to What the Buck with Buck Rotano, and hope you guys enjoyed that. Good night, everybody.